The ship came out of faster-than-light travel with a flash of blue light. It appeared near the giant space station called Nexus Prime. The station was huge, bigger than most moons. Thousands of ships moved around it like insects around a bright lamp. Some ships were sleek and shiny. Others had strange shapes that seemed to defy physics. All of them belonged to the advanced races of the galaxy. The human ship was different, very different. D1 sat in the captain's chair and looked at the view screen. His face showed no emotion as he watched the station grow larger. Next to him, Hana checked the ship's systems. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel. "We are being scanned," Hana said. Her voice was calm and steady. "I know," D1 replied. "Let them look." Their ship, the Quiet Thunder, did not look impressive. The hull seemed to be made of different pieces welded together. Some parts were dark gray. Other parts were almost black. The shape was odd and unbalanced. One side bulged out more than the other. The engines glowed with a dull orange light instead of the bright blue or white of most advanced ships. To anyone watching, it looked like junk. It looked like something built by people who barely understood space travel. Inside the station's control room, Vormix stared at his screen. He was a Talvirian, tall and thin with purple skin and 4 arms. His species had been traveling through space for 10,000 years. He considered himself and his people to be among the most advanced in the galaxy. He looked at the image of the human ship and laughed. The sound was sharp and cruel. "What is that?" he said to his crew. "Did someone bring their garbage to my station?" The other controllers laughed with him. A Bendorian with green scales pointed at the screen. "I think it is supposed to be a ship, Commander." "Impossible," Vormix said. He zoomed in on the image. "Look at it. The design makes no sense. The hull plating is uneven. I can see welding marks from here. What primitive species made this thing?" One of his assistants checked the identification signal. "It says they are human, sir, from the planet Earth." Vormix tilted his head. He had heard of humans. They were a young race, barely 200 years into space travel. They had a few colonies, nothing impressive. Most of the galaxy ignored them. "Humans," Vormix said with a sneer. "Of course. They probably found old parts floating in space and stuck them together." He pressed a button to open a communication channel. "Human vessel, this is Nexus Prime Control. State your business." D1's face appeared on Vormix's screen. The human looked ordinary. Dark hair, brown eyes, a calm expression. Nothing special. "This is Captain D1 of the Quiet Thunder," the human said. His voice was polite and professional. "We request permission to dock. We wish to trade and resupply." Vormix looked at the human with barely hidden disgust. "We do not usually allow ships of your quality to dock at Nexus Prime. Our standards are very high." "I understand," D1 said. His expression did not change. "We can pay the docking fees. We will follow all station regulations." Behind Vormix, several crew members laughed. One of them took a picture of the human ship with his personal device. Within minutes, that picture would spread across the station's communication networks. Vormix thought for a moment. He could refuse the humans entirely. But station rules said he had to allow any peaceful ship to dock if they could pay. He smiled cruelly. "Very well," he said. "You may dock, but not in the main docking area. You will use Port 17 in the industrial sector. That is where we put ships that are less advanced." "Thank you," D1 said. "We accept." The communication ended. Vormix turned to his crew. "Make sure everyone knows about this. I want images of that ridiculous ship sent everywhere. Let the whole station have a good laugh." Across the station, aliens of every species began to receive messages. They saw the pictures of the Quiet Thunder. They read the descriptions. Within an hour, the human ship was the joke of the day. In a fancy restaurant near the station center, a group of Keltharian merchants looked at the images on their data pads. They laughed until their tentacles shook. "Humans," one of them said, I heard they were primitive, but this is amazing. That ship looks like it was built by children. I want to see it in person, another said. Come, let us go to the industrial sector. I need a good laugh. In the military docking area, officers from 3 different galactic navies gathered around a holographic display. They looked at the scans of the human ship and shook their heads. Is this a joke? A tall Vraxian asked. His scales were bright red, marking him as a high-ranking officer. Did they really travel through space in that thing? The scans confirm it, his aide replied. The ship does have a faster-than-light drive, somehow. Their technology must be incredibly outdated, the Vraxian said. No wonder humans are not taken seriously in the galactic community. But in a small laboratory tucked away in the station's science wing, someone was not laughing. Quilreth was a Mendorian scientist. His species was known for their curiosity and careful thinking. He had 4 eyes, each one able to see different types of light and energy. Quilreth stared at his instruments with growing confusion. He had been running routine scans of all incoming ships. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. When the scans touched the human ship, something strange happened. The readings flickered. They jumped between different values. The computer could not decide what the ship's hull was made of. 1 second it said basic iron alloys. The next second it said something else entirely. Then the scan would bounce back as if the hull was a mirror. That is not right, Quilreth muttered to himself. He ran the scan again. The same thing happened. He tried a different type of scan. This one used gravitational waves instead of electromagnetic radiation. The results were even stranger. The ship seemed to have almost no mass, but that was impossible. He could see it with his own eyes on the video feed. It was clearly solid matter. Quilreth saved all the data and made a note to investigate further, but he said nothing to anyone else. Not yet. He had learned long ago that reporting strange readings without proof made people think you were bad at your job. Meanwhile, the quiet thunder moved slowly toward Port 17. D1 guided the ship with gentle touches on the controls. Hana monitored their course and watched the station's traffic. They are making fun of us, Hana said. She pointed to her screen, which showed the station's public communication channels. Images of their ship were everywhere, with cruel jokes and mocking comments. D1 glanced at the screen and smiled slightly. Let them laugh. It does not bother you. No, D1 said. Words cannot hurt us, and their opinions do not matter. Some of them are coming to Port 17 to see us in person, Hana said. They want to laugh at us face to face. Then we will be polite, D1 said. We will smile and nod. We will do our business and leave. Hana nodded. She had worked with D1 for 5 years. She trusted his judgment completely. If he said to stay calm, she would stay calm. The ship entered the industrial sector. This part of the station was ugly and functional. There was no fancy decoration here, just metal walls, cargo containers, and ships that did dirty work, mining vessels, salvage ships, old freighters that carried cheap goods. Port 17 was at the end of a long docking arm. As the quiet thunder approached, Hana could see dozens of aliens gathering near the docking port. They had come to watch. They had come to laugh. D1 brought the ship in perfectly. The docking clamps engaged with a solid thunk. The airlock pressurized. Everything worked smoothly despite how the ship looked. Ready? D1 asked. Ready, Hana replied. They both stood up and walked toward the airlock. Behind them, the ship's systems hummed quietly. To any basic scan, it looked like a normal, outdated power core, something that could barely keep the lights on. But deep inside the ship, in places no simple scan could reach, other systems waited. Systems that bent space and time. Systems that touched dimensions the galaxy's scientists did not know existed. Systems that could do things these laughing aliens would call impossible. The airlock door opened. D1 and Hana stepped out onto the station. They wore simple flight suits. They carried no weapons. They smiled politely at the crowd of aliens who had come to mock them. And they said nothing at all about what their ship really was. The crowd of aliens pressed closer to get a better view of the humans. There were at least 40 of them. They came in all shapes and sizes. Some had scales, others had fur or feathers. A few were almost completely mechanical, but they all wore the same expression. They were here to be entertained by the primitive visitors. A large Crothian stepped forward. He stood nearly 3 meters tall with gray skin like stone. His massive arms were crossed over his chest. "So these are the humans," he said in a booming voice. "They look as weak as their ship." Several aliens laughed. A small flying creature circled above, taking pictures with a floating camera device. D1 looked up at the Crothian without fear. "We are here to trade," he said simply. "Do you have business with us?" The Crothian snorted. "Business? With you? I would not trust that wreck of yours to carry my garbage." More laughter. Hana stood beside D1 with her hands clasped behind her back. Her face showed nothing. No anger, no embarrassment, just calm patience. "We understand," D1 said. "Thank you for your time." He started to walk past the crowd toward the main station corridor. The aliens parted to let them through, still laughing and pointing. Some made rude gestures. Others took more pictures. A Talvirian merchant spit on the ground near their feet. D1 and Hana kept walking. They did not react. They moved like they were alone, like the crowd did not exist. "Why do they not fight back?" someone in the crowd asked. "Are all humans such cowards?" "What can they do?" another replied. "Look at them, they are nothing." The humans turned a corner and the crowd slowly dispersed. Most of them went back to their own business, satisfied with the morning's entertainment. But a few followed at a distance, hopping for more amusement. D1 and Hana made their way to the commercial sector. This area was cleaner and more organized than the industrial docks. Shops and trading offices lined the corridors. Holographic advertisements floated in the air, shouting about deals and special offers in 100 different languages. They entered a general supply store. The owner was a Bendorian with greenish-blue scales and kind eyes. She looked up when they entered and her expression shifted slightly. She had clearly seen the pictures going around the station. "Welcome," she said carefully. "How can I help you?" "We need standard supplies," Hana said. She pulled out a data pad and showed the owner a list. Food rations, water recycling filters, and basic repair materials. The owner looked at the list. Her eyes widened slightly. You have galactic credits, real credits." "Yes," D1 said. He transferred the payment information. The owner's device beeped confirmation. Her attitude changed immediately. Of course," she said, suddenly friendly. "I will have everything ready within the hour. Where should I deliver it?" "Port 17, Docking Bay B12, Hana said. The owner nodded quickly. After the humans left, she looked at the payment amount on her screen. They had not argued about the price. They had not tried to bargain. They just paid the full amount without hesitation. That was unusual. Most spacers argued about every credit. D1 and Hana continued through the station. They visited several other shops. They bought navigational data, some spare parts, and common trade goods. At each place, the pattern repeated. The shopkeepers saw who they were. They acted cold at first. Then they saw the humans had real money. Then they became helpful. By early afternoon, they sat in a small food court eating a simple meal. Around them, other spacers and station workers ate and talked. Many stared at the humans. Some whispered and pointed. "This food is not bad," Hana said. She ate something that looked like noodles but was made from algae. "Better than our ration packs." "Agreed," D1 said. He ate slowly, enjoying the change from ship food. A young Keltharian approached their table. He was different from the ones who had mocked them earlier. This one had nervous energy. His tentacles twitched with curiosity rather than contempt. "Excuse me," he said, "are you really from Earth?" D1 looked up. "Yes." "I have read about your planet," the Keltharian said. "You have oceans that cover most of the surface. Is that true?" "It is true," Hana said. The young alien's eyes lit up. "Fascinating. My world has no oceans, only small lakes. I study water-based ecosystems. Would you mind telling me about Earth?" D1 gestured to an empty chair. "Please sit." For the next 30 minutes they talked. The Keltharian asked many questions. What did the ocean look like? What creatures lived there? How did the tides work? D1 and Hana answered patiently. They described their home world with simple words and clear details. Other aliens at nearby tables listened quietly. Their mockery faded into curiosity. The humans spoke well. They were clearly educated. They knew facts about science and nature. When the Keltharian finally left, he thanked them profusely. "You have given me much to think about," he said. "Thank you for your time." After he left, Hana smiled. "Not everyone here is cruel." "No," D1 agreed, "just most of them." They finished their meal and returned to the industrial sector. On the way, they passed through a large cargo handling area. Massive containers were being moved by automated systems. Magnetic lifters hummed as they carried goods from one ship to another. Suddenly, one of the lifters sparked. Red warning lights flashed. The container it was carrying began to tilt dangerously. Inside were clearly marked hazardous materials. If the container fell, it could rupture. The chemicals inside could kill everyone in the area. Workers scattered and screamed. Station alarms began to wail. The lifter's systems failed completely. The container tipped further. D1 and Hana stopped walking. They stood perfectly still, watching. The container was about to fall. In seconds, it would hit the floor and break open. Everyone could see it happening. Everyone was helpless to stop it. Then something changed. The container stopped moving. It hung in the air at an impossible angle. It should have fallen. Gravity should have pulled it down, but it just hung there frozen. Slowly, carefully, it began to right itself. It lifted back up to a stable position. The magnetic lifter below sparked once more, then shut down completely. But the container did not fall. It simply floated there, held by nothing visible. Other containers nearby began to move. They slid aside, making room. The frozen container drifted smoothly through the air and settled gently on the floor. As soon as it touched down safely, whatever force was holding it disappeared. The alarm stopped. Workers stared in shock. Safety teams rushed in, but the emergency was over. In the station's control room, Vormix watched the security footage of the incident. His 4 arms trembled. "What happened?" he demanded. "What caught that container?" His technicians worked frantically at their stations. "Unknown, sir," one of them said. "The magnetic lifter failed completely. There was nothing holding the container, but our sensors detected a brief energy pulse just before it stopped falling." "From where?" The technician checked his instruments. His face turned pale. "From the industrial sector, sir. From the area of Port 17. Vormix felt a cold sensation in his chest. "The human ship." "We cannot confirm, sir. The pulse was extremely brief, less than a microsecond. We barely detected it at all." Vormix stared at the screen. He watched the replay again and again, the container stopping in midair, the impossible floating, the gentle landing. His scientific training told him this should not be possible, not without equipment he could see, not without energy readings that made sense. He remembered the human ship, the ugly, primitive-looking hull, the mismatched plating, the dull engines. For the first time, a small doubt entered his mind. What if the ship was not what it seemed? In another part of the station, Quillreth was having his own revelation. He had been running deep scans on the human ship for hours. He used every sensor at his disposal. The more he scanned, the less sense it made. The hull readings kept changing. Every scan gave a different result. It was as if the ship was made of something that refused to be measured, something that actively avoided detection. Quillrath increased the power of his scans. He needed to see through whatever was confusing his instruments. He poured more energy into the sensor array, more power, more focus. The readings flickered wildly. Then, just for a moment, they showed something impossible. The ship's interior was not empty space with engines and rooms. It was folded, layered, as if the inside of the ship was much bigger than the outside should allow. Quillrath's 4 eyes widened in shock. He ran the scan again immediately, but the reading was gone. The ship looked normal once more, just an old, primitive vessel with basic systems. But Quillrath had seen it. For just 1 second he had glimpsed something extraordinary, something that should not exist. He saved all his data carefully. He triple-checked his instruments to make sure they were working properly. They were. Everything functioned perfectly. Which meant what he saw was real. Somehow, someway, that ugly human ship contained technology he did not understand. Technology that was hiding itself. Quillrath sat back in his chair. His mind raced with possibilities. Should he report this? Who would believe him? He had only 1 second of strange data. Everything else looked normal. He decided to wait. He would gather more evidence. He would run more scans. And this time, he would not tell anyone until he had proof that could not be denied. Back at Port 17, D1 and Hana returned to their ship. The supplies they ordered had been delivered. Everything was loaded and secured. They entered the airlock and sealed it behind them. Only then did Hana allow herself to show emotion. She looked at D1 with concern. "You used the field," she said quietly. "I had to," D1 replied. "People would have died. Someone might have noticed." "Perhaps," D1 said, "but we saved lives. That matters more than staying hidden." Hana nodded slowly. She knew he was right, but she also knew this might complicate things. Someone, somewhere, might start asking questions. Quillrath did not sleep that night. He stayed in his laboratory, running scan after scan on the human ship. He used equipment that was supposed to be locked away, equipment that required special permission to operate, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear of getting in trouble. Each scan revealed small oddities, nothing as dramatic as the folded space he had glimpsed earlier, just tiny inconsistencies that made no sense. The ship's mass changed by small amounts between scans. Its energy signature flickered in ways no normal power system should flicker. Sometimes it reflected sensor beams. Sometimes it absorbed them completely. It was like the ship was alive, like it was actively responding to his scans and changing itself to remain hidden. By morning, Quillrath had filled his data storage with strange readings. Individually, each one could be explained as instrument error or interference, but together they formed a pattern that suggested the human ship was far more advanced than it appeared. He organized all his data into a comprehensive report, charts, graphs, detailed analysis, everything a scientist could want. Then he sent a message to Commander Vormix requesting an urgent meeting. Vormix was in a bad mood when he received the message. He had spent half the night reviewing the footage of the cargo accident. The more he watched it, the less he liked what he saw. Something had saved that container, something invisible, something powerful. When Quillrath arrived at his office, Vormix was ready to dismiss him. Scientists were always seeing mysteries that did not exist, but Quillrath's first words caught his attention. "The human ship is not what it appears to be," Quillrath said without preamble. Vormix leaned back in his chair, his 4 arms spread wide. "Explain." Quillrath placed a data crystal on the desk. "I have been scanning their vessel since it arrived. Every scan produces anomalous results. The hull composition changes. The energy readings are inconsistent. And yesterday, for exactly 1.3 seconds, I detected spatial folding inside the ship." Spatial folding, Vormix's tone was skeptical. That is theoretical technology. No one has successfully created it. I know what I saw, Quillreth insisted. He activated a holographic display showing his data. Look at these readings. Look at this pattern. Their ship is actively hiding itself from our sensors. Vormix studied the data. He was an administrator, not a scientist, but he understood enough to see the problem. The readings made no sense, unless you think they have advanced stealth technology. More than that, Quillreth said. His voice trembled with excitement and fear. I think their entire ship is built on principles we do not understand. I think what we see on the outside is a deliberate disguise. Vormix stood up and paced. His mind worked quickly. If this was true, it changed everything. The humans they had mocked, the ship they had laughed at. What if it was all an act? Can you prove this? He asked. Can you get definitive readings? I need access to the military sensor arrays, Quillreth said. The civilian equipment I have been using is not powerful enough, but the military arrays in docking section Alpha could penetrate any stealth technology. If the humans are hiding something, those sensors will reveal it. Vormix considered this. Using military equipment on a civilian ship without permission was technically illegal. But if the humans were hiding advanced technology, he needed to know. The security of the entire station could be at risk. I will arrange it, Vormix said. But we do this quietly. If we are wrong, I do not want to look like a fool. While Vormix and Quillreth made their plans, word of the cargo accident had spread throughout the station. People whispered about the mysterious force that had saved the container. Some said it was divine intervention. Others claimed it was a secret station defense system. But a few people, the smart ones, remembered seeing the humans walking through that area when it happened. They remembered the two figures standing still and calm while everyone else panicked. In a bar near the military docks, 3 ship captains sat drinking and talking. One was the Crothian who had mocked the humans the day before. The other 2 were a Vraxian naval officer and a Talvirian merchant. I am telling you, the Talvirian said, something strange is happening. That accident should have killed dozens of people, but the container just stopped falling. That does not happen. The Crothian waved a massive hand dismissively. Station systems probably had an emergency protocol, some backup we do not know about. No, the Vraxian said thoughtfully. I checked with station engineering. They confirmed the magnetic lifter failed completely. There was nothing holding that container. It should have fallen. Then what stopped it? The Crothian asked. The Vraxian looked at his drink. I heard the humans were there when it happened. The Talvirian laughed. The humans, those primitives, what could they possibly do? But the Vraxian did not laugh. He was a military officer. He was trained to notice patterns. And he had learned long ago that when something impossible happened, you should look for what you were not seeing. Maybe we should not have been so quick to judge them, he said quietly. Back at Port 17, D1 and Hana prepared their ship for departure. They had completed their trading. Their supplies were loaded. There was no reason to stay longer. Hana ran final system checks. Everything showed green. We can leave within the hour, she said. D1 nodded, but he was looking at a display showing the station's sensor network. He could see the activity. Someone was running very powerful scans, and those scans were slowly sweeping toward their location. We have a problem, he said calmly. Hana looked at the display, her eyes narrowed. They are using military sensors. Someone suspects something. Yes, D1 agreed. He thought for a moment. If we leave now, it will look suspicious. But if we stay, they will scan us with equipment that might see through our disguise. What do you want to do? D1 smiled slightly. We stay, we let them scan us, and we see what they find. Hana looked surprised. You want them to discover the truth. Not all of it, D1 said, but maybe enough to change how they think about us, about humanity. That is risky. Everything is risky, D1 replied. But we cannot hide forever. Eventually, someone will look close enough to see. Better it happens here in a controlled way than later when we might not be ready. In the military sensor control room, Quillrath and Vormix stood with three high-ranking military officers. The Vraxian captain who had been drinking earlier was among them. He had been called in because he specialized in advanced sensor technology. "This is highly irregular," one of the officers said, scanning a civilian vessel with military equipment. "I would not ask if it was not important," Vormix said. "We have reason to believe the human ship may pose a security risk." "What kind of risk?" the officer demanded. "They have done nothing illegal." Quillrath spoke up. "Please just look at my data. Look at the anomalies. Something is not right about that ship." The Vraxian captain studied the data Quillrath provided. His expression grew more interested. "These readings are unusual," he admitted. "Very well. We will do one deep scan, but if we find nothing, this ends here." They activated the military sensor array. It was the most powerful scanning system in the sector. It could detect a single atom from 1,000 kilometers away. It could see through any known stealth technology. It could analyze materials down to their molecular structure. The sensor beam focused on the human ship. Data began flowing into the computers. At first, everything looked normal. The hull showed basic alloys. The power system showed a standard fusion reactor. The interior showed rooms and corridors like any other small ship. "See," one officer said, "nothing unusual, just an old ship." But then the computers began having trouble. The data started contradicting itself. The hull was steel. No, it was titanium. No, it was something else entirely. The power readings jumped between different values. The ship's mass changed. "What is happening?" Vormix demanded. The Vraxian captain worked frantically at the controls. "The sensors are working perfectly, but the data they are receiving keeps changing. It is like the ship is made of different materials every second." Quillrath leaned forward excitedly. "Increase the power. Push through whatever is causing the interference." The Vraxian looked doubtful but complied. He increased the sensor power to maximum. The array hummed with energy. It poured scanning beams at the human ship with incredible intensity. For a moment nothing changed, then something broke, like a wall shattering, like a mask falling away. The computers received a massive flood of data, so much data that 3 separate systems crashed trying to process it all. Warning alarms sounded. The screens went dark. Then they flickered back to life, showing readings that made no sense at all. "That is impossible," one officer whispered. The ship's hull was not made of simple metals. It was constructed from quantum-locked materials. Materials that existed in multiple states at once. Materials that should not be possible to create, let alone shape into a ship's hull. The power system was not a fusion reactor. It drew energy from zero-point fluctuations in space itself. Infinite energy. Clean energy. Energy that every physicist in the galaxy said was theoretically possible but practically impossible to harness. The ship's interior was bigger than the outside. Somehow, impossibly, the humans had folded space inside their ship. Rooms and corridors existed in dimensions the sensors could barely detect. The ship was a small box on the outside that contained a palace on the inside. And the weapons. There were no visible weapons on the ship, but the sensors now showed field generators, gravity manipulators, systems that could bend reality itself. The ship could destroy the entire station without firing a single shot. It could do so instantly, effortlessly, just by adjusting fields that no one else knew how to create. The control room fell silent. Every officer stared at the screens in disbelief. The data could not be real. It had to be an error. But the military sensors did not make errors. They were the most accurate instruments in the galaxy. "What are they?" Vormix asked in a shaking voice. "What are the humans?" The Vraxian captain sat down heavily. His hands trembled. "I do not know," he said. But that ship is more advanced than anything I have ever seen, more advanced than anything in the galactic database. It is technology from the future, or from a civilization that should not exist. Quillrith stared at the data with wide eyes. He had wanted proof. He had wanted to know the truth. Now he had it, and he realized that knowing the truth was terrifying. On the quiet thunder, alarms chimed softly. Hana looked at D1 with concern. They broke through the outer disguise layer. They can see some of our real systems now. D1 nodded calmly. Good, let them look, let them understand. They will panic. Yes, D1 said. They will panic, they will be afraid. But then, if we are lucky, they will think. And thinking is what we need them to do. Within minutes, word spread through the military channels. Within an hour, every major power in the sector knew. The humans had technology that should not exist. Technology that made the galaxy's most advanced civilizations look primitive by comparison. Emergency meetings were called. Ship captains were pulled from their duties. Scientists abandoned their work. Everyone wanted to see the data. Everyone needed to understand what this meant. In the station's main conference chamber, representatives from 12 different species gathered. The room was tense. Fear hung in the air like smoke. At the head of the table, Vormix stood with Quillrath beside him. On the large screens behind them, the sensor data scrolled endlessly. "This cannot be real," a Caltharian admiral said. Her tentacles coiled tightly with stress. No species could develop such technology in only 200 years of space travel. "The data is accurate," Quillreth said firmly. "I have verified it multiple times. The human ship contains technology we do not understand, technology that operates on principles we have not discovered." A Talvirian diplomat leaned forward. "What are their intentions? Are we in danger?" "We do not know," Vormix admitted. "They have been peaceful, they traded normally, they broke no laws, but now," he gestured at the screens, "now we know they could destroy us all if they wished." The Vraxian military captain who had helped with the scans spoke up. "I have a question. If they have this technology, why hide it? Why make their ship look primitive? Why allow us to mock them?" The room fell silent. It was a good question. Everyone had been so focused on the technology itself that they had not stopped to think about the humans' behavior. "Perhaps they are studying us," someone suggested, "watching how we react, learning about us." "Or perhaps," said an old Mendorian scholar, "they are testing us, seeing if we judge by appearances, seeing if we have wisdom or only pride." That thought made everyone uncomfortable. They remembered the pictures, the jokes, the cruel laughter. They remembered assigning the humans to the worst docking area, treating them like trash. And all along, the humans could have destroyed the station with a thought, could have demanded respect with a show of power, but they did nothing. They accepted the insults. They smiled politely. They paid their fees and did their business. "Why?" A chime sounded. The chamber doors opened. Two figures walked in. D1 and Hana entered calmly as if they had been invited. No one had called them. No one had sent them a message. Yet here they were. Security guards moved to stop them, but the Vraxian captain held up a hand. "Let them approach." The crowd of officials and officers parted. D1 and Hana walked to the center of the room. They stood facing the assembled representatives of galactic power. Two humans, alone, surrounded by dozens of armed guards and powerful leaders. They showed no fear at all. "You scanned our ship," D1 said. "It was not a question. You saw through our disguise." Vormix felt his throat tighten. His forearms trembled slightly. "Yes, we apologize. It was a violation of your privacy." D1 smiled slightly. "It is all right. We allowed it. We lowered our defenses enough for your sensors to see some of what we are." "Some?" the Caltharian admiral asked. "You mean there is more?" "Much more," Hana said simply. "What you saw is only the outer layer, the parts we use for basic travel. The real systems are deeper, hidden in dimensions you cannot scan. The room erupted in whispers. Dimensions they could not scan. How much more advanced were these humans? Why? Vormix asked. The word came out as almost a plea. Why hide such power? Why let us mock you? Why not simply take your place as the most advanced species in the galaxy? D1 walked to the large windows that looked out over the station. He gazed at the thousands of ships moving through space, at the millions of beings living their lives, at the vast complexity of galactic civilization. Because power invites conflict, he said quietly. If we revealed ourselves, what would happen? Some would fear us. They would see us as a threat. They would build weapons to fight us. Others would worship us. They would become dependent. They would stop thinking for themselves. He turned back to face the room. We do not want either of those things. We do not want fear. We do not want worship. We want to observe, to learn, to understand the galaxy and its peoples. But you could rule, the Talvirian diplomat said. With your technology you could bring order, end conflicts, create peace. Peace forced by power is not real peace, Hana said. It is only fear wearing a mask. True peace must come from understanding, from choice, from the free will of people deciding to work together. The old Mendorian scholar nodded slowly. You are wise, wiser than your technology. We try to be, D1 said. We have learned from our own history. Humanity nearly destroyed itself many times before we reached the stars. We learned that power without wisdom is dangerous, that advancement without compassion is hollow. A Bendorian security chief spoke up. But the cargo accident, that was you, was it not? You saved those people. Yes, D1 admitted. We could not stand by and watch people die when we could help, even if it risked revealing ourselves. So you do interfere, the Vraxian captain said. You do use your power. Only to preserve life, Hana said. Never to control, never to dominate. We help when we can do so without causing greater problems. But we do not rule, we do not command, we do not force others to follow our path. Vormix felt something break inside him. Shame, deep, burning shame. We judged you, he said quietly. We saw your ship and decided you were primitive, worthless. We laughed at you. Yes, D1 said without anger, you did. And you said nothing. You let us believe we were superior. Would you have listened if we told you the truth? D1 asked. If we had arrived and announced we were advanced, would you have believed us? Or would you have thought we were liars and fools? The room was silent. Everyone knew the answer. They would not have believed. They would have laughed even harder. By letting you discover the truth yourselves, Hana said. By letting your own instruments show you what we are, the truth becomes undeniable. You can choose to ignore it, but you cannot claim we tricked you. The Keltharian admiral's tentacles loosened slightly. What do you want from us? Nothing, D1 said. We want nothing. We will finish our resupply and leave. You will go back to your lives. This station will continue as before. But now we know, Quilrith said. Now we know humans are not what we thought. How can we go back to before? D1 smiled. You cannot. Knowledge changes everything. But what you do with that knowledge is up to you. A Crothian general stood up. He was the one who had mocked the humans in the docking area. His stone-like face showed deep thought. You could demand anything from us right now. Technology, resources, territory. We could not stop you, but you ask for nothing. Why? Because taking things by force makes you no better than a thief, D1 said. We have everything we need. We built our technology through generations of work, of failure, of learning. If we simply gave it to you, you would not understand it. You would not respect it. You would use it badly. Then we must develop it ourselves, the old Mendorian scholar said. We must earn our advancement through our own effort. Yes, Hana said. That is the only way that matters. Vormix stepped forward, his 4 arms spread in a gesture of deep apology. I shamed myself. I shamed my station. I judged you by appearance and found you wanting. But I was the one who was lacking, not in technology but in wisdom. I ask your forgiveness." "You have it," D1 said simply. "We do not hold grudges, we understand. Every species judges by what they see. It is natural. What matters is what you do after you learn the truth." A young Talvirian officer raised her hand hesitantly. "Can you at least tell us how you did it? How humanity advanced so far so quickly?" D1 considered this. "We can tell you some things, not everything but some. We discovered that compassion is not weakness, that caring for others makes you stronger, not softer. We learned to work together despite our differences. We stopped fighting over resources and started sharing them." "And the technology?" Quillreth asked eagerly. "How did you develop such advanced systems?" "By asking the right questions," Hana said. "Most species look at the universe and ask, 'How can I control this?' Humans learn to ask, 'How can I understand this?' Control is temporary. Understanding is forever." She pulled out a small device from her pocket. It was a simple metal sphere, no bigger than her fist. She placed it on the conference table. "This is a gift, a data core containing basic principles, mathematical proofs, scientific foundations, things that will help you understand the universe better." Everyone stared at the sphere. "You are giving us your technology?" the Caltharian admiral asked in disbelief. "No," D1 said. "We are giving you knowledge. What you build with that knowledge is up to you. The data in that core will advance your science by perhaps 100 years, but you must still do the work. You must still ask the questions. You must still learn." "Why?" Vormix asked. "Why help us after how we treated you?" D1 looked at him with kind eyes. "Because holding grudges helps no one. Because we believe every species deserves a chance to grow. And because someday, perhaps, you will meet another species that seems primitive and weak. And instead of mocking them, you will remember this day. You will remember that appearance means nothing. That wisdom matters more than power. That kindness matters more than pride." The room fell silent again. But this time the silence was different. It was not fear. It was awe. Not awe at the humans' technology, but awe at their character, at their restraint, at their choice to help rather than dominate. Hana tapped the sphere. "The data is freely given, no trade required, no favors owed. Use it well, use it wisely, and perhaps in time the galaxy will be a better place." D1 and Hana turned to leave. They walked through the crowd toward the doors. No one tried to stop them. No one asked more questions. They simply watched the two humans depart. At the doorway, D1 paused and looked back. "One more thing," he said. "Our ship is not one of humanity's most advanced vessels. It is actually one of our older models. We use it for simple exploration and trading. Our newer ships," he smiled. "Well, you would not believe me if I told you." Then they left. The doors closed behind them. The assembled leaders of galactic civilization sat in stunned silence, trying to comprehend what they had just learned. The sphere sat in the center of the conference table. No one touched it. They all stared at it like it was a holy object, or a dangerous bomb. Perhaps it was both. Finally, Quillreth reached out with a trembling hand. He picked up the sphere and held it carefully. It was warm. It hummed with a barely perceptible vibration. "We should analyze this immediately," he said. His voice shook with excitement and fear. "Wait," the old Mendorian scholar said. "Before we look inside, we should discuss what we learned today, what this means for all of us." The Caltharian admiral nodded. "Agreed. The technology is important, but the humans taught us something else, something about ourselves." Vormix sat down heavily. His 4 arms hung limply at his sides. "They showed us that we are fools, that we judge without thinking, that we mock what we do not understand." "Not just that," the Vraxian captain said. "They showed us that power and wisdom are different things. They have more power than all of us combined, but they use it with restraint, with care." The Bendorian security chief spoke up. "Think about what they could have done when we insulted them, When we put them in the worst docking area, they could have destroyed this station. Instead, they smiled and said thank you. Because they are better than us, a young officer said quietly. Not in technology, in character. The room fell silent as that truth settled over them. It was a humbling realization. They had spent so long believing that advancement meant better ships, stronger weapons, faster engines. But the humans had shown them that true advancement was about how you treated others, about wisdom, about compassion. We need to change, Vormix said. Not just here on the station, but everywhere. We need to spread what we learned today. Will anyone believe us? The Talvirian diplomat asked. If we tell them about the human ship, about what we saw, will they accept it? Quillreth held up the sphere. This will prove it. Once we share the knowledge inside, once other scientists see these principles, they will understand. The humans gave us proof that cannot be denied. The old Mendorian scholar stood up slowly. His joints creaked with age. I have lived a long life. I have seen many wonders, but today I witnessed the greatest wonder of all. A species with the power of gods choosing to act with the humility of servants. The humans could rule the galaxy, but they choose to walk quietly among us, learning, helping when they can, asking nothing in return. How many of them are there? Someone asked. How many human ships travel the galaxy in disguise? No one had an answer, but now every strange ship they had dismissed would be viewed differently. Every odd vessel, every craft that looked primitive or broken, any one of them could be human, could contain technology beyond imagination. We made them hide, the Vraxian captain said sadly. Our pride, our arrogance. We made it necessary for them to disguise themselves because we would not have accepted them as they truly are. Perhaps, the Bendorian said, or perhaps they would hide anyway. Remember what Captain D1 said, power invites conflict. Maybe they learned this lesson long ago. Maybe they tried revealing themselves to other species and it went badly. That thought sent a chill through the room. What happened to species who discovered humanity's true nature? Did they react with fear, with violence? Is that why humans now traveled in disguise? Quillreth carefully placed the sphere in a secure container. I will begin analysis immediately, but I suggest we keep this information limited for now. If word spreads too quickly, it could cause panic. Agreed, Vormix said. We will share the knowledge with trusted scientists and leaders, but we must be careful, we must be wise. He almost laughed at that last word. The humans had taught them about wisdom just by being themselves. Meanwhile, at Port 17, D1 and Hana prepared for departure. They moved through the ship's corridors, checking systems and securing cargo. Everything was ready. How do you think they will react? Hana asked. Long term, I mean, once they have time to process everything. D1 thought about this as he sealed a storage locker. Some will be grateful. They will learn from the knowledge we gave them. They will grow. Others will be angry. They will feel tricked or patronized. And some will be afraid. They will see us as a threat. So nothing will really change, Hana said with a slight smile. Oh, things will change, D1 replied. Just slowly, just subtly. That sphere contains principles that will advance their science significantly. In 50 years, 100 years, this galaxy will be very different. Better, hopefully. They reached the bridge and took their positions. Hana began the startup sequence. The ship systems came online smoothly, quietly. To any basic scan, it still looked like an old, unremarkable vessel, but now at least some people in the galaxy knew the truth. Should we have told them more? Hana asked. About Earth, about how many of us are out here. No, D1 said. They learned enough for one day. More would overwhelm them. Let them adjust to this first. In time, they will discover more on their own. A communication request appeared on their screen. It was from Vormix. D1 accepted it. The Talvirian commander appeared on the display. He looked different than before. Humbler, more thoughtful. Captain D1, he said formally. I wanted to speak with you before you departed. Of course, Commander, D1 said. Vormix took a breath. I have issued new station protocols. From this day forward, all ships will be treated with equal respect regardless of their appearance. All visitors will be given proper welcome, and we will remember that what we see is not always what truly is. D1 smiled warmly. That is good, Commander. That is very good. It is not enough, Vormix said. I know that I cannot undo my shame, but it is a start. A start is all anyone can ask for, D1 said. We all make mistakes. What matters is learning from them. Vormix nodded. Safe travels, Captain, and thank you for your patience, for your gift, for teaching us without humiliating us. You are welcome, D1 said. Take care of that data core, use it well. The communication ended. Hana looked at D1 with curiosity. You really do care about them, don't you? About all of them, even after how they treated us. Of course, D1 said. They are young species, still learning, still growing. Humanity was the same once. We made the same mistakes. We judged by appearance. We mocked those who seemed weak. We thought power made us superior. What changed us? Hana asked. D1 was quiet for a moment. We met someone else, another species, long ago. They were kind to us when they did not have to be. They helped us when we did not deserve it. They taught us that wisdom matters more than weapons, and we never forgot that lesson. And now we pass it on, Hana said softly. Yes, D1 agreed. Now we pass it on. The quiet thunder disengaged from the docking clamps. It moved slowly away from Nexus Prime Station. This time, no one laughed. No one mocked. Dozens of ships maintained respectful distance. Hundreds of beings watched from the station windows with new eyes. The ugly, mismatched hull glinted in the light of nearby stars. To anyone who knew what to look for, there were hints now. Small signs that this was more than it appeared. The way the light bent slightly around it. The way space itself seemed to curve near its engines. The way it moved with impossible grace for something that looked so crude. In the station's observatory, Quillreth watched through powerful telescopes. He tracked the human ship as it moved away. He was already planning new experiments, new ways to study them. The data core the humans gave them would keep scientists busy for decades. But Quillreth wanted more. He wanted to understand, not just the technology but the philosophy behind it. The quiet thunder reached the edge of the station's traffic control zone. It paused for just a moment. Then, without any visible acceleration, it simply vanished. One moment it was there. The next it was gone, faster than light, but smoother than any other ship in the galaxy could manage. Did you see that? Someone breathed. How did they do that? Quillreth smiled. We will figure it out, eventually. That is what the humans want. They want us to learn, to discover, to earn our advancement through our own effort. How long will it take? Someone asked. Years, Quillreth said. Decades, maybe centuries, but we will get there. And when we do, maybe we will be wise enough to use such power well, the way humans do. Far from Nexus Prime, in the darkness between stars, the quiet thunder traveled at speeds that bent reality itself. Inside, D1 and Hana sat in comfortable silence. Where to next? Hana asked. D1 pulled up a star chart. It showed thousands of systems, hundreds of civilizations. There, he said, pointing to a small cluster of stars. 3 species share that region. They have been at war for 50 years. Maybe we can help, quietly, without them knowing. Another disguise? Hana asked with a slight smile. Always, D1 said. We will arrive looking like refugees or traders, something harmless, something they will ignore. And while they ignore us, we will watch, we will learn. And when the moment is right, we will help. They will never know it was us. That is fine, D1 said. We do not do this for recognition. We do this because it is right, because we can, because someone once did the same for us and we promise to never forget. The ship hummed quietly as it traveled through folded space. Inside its hull, in dimensions hidden from normal sight, Vast chambers held equipment and knowledge beyond galactic science. Libraries of information, gardens growing in artificial sunlight, workshops where humans crafted miracles that others would not believe existed. But on the outside, it still looked like junk, like something built by primitives who barely understood space travel. And that was exactly how humanity wanted it. Because wisdom meant knowing when to be seen and when to hide, when to speak and when to listen, when to lead and when to follow. The galaxy was full of species seeking power, seeking dominance, seeking to prove they were the best. Humanity had already proven they were the best. They just saw no need to tell anyone. They had learned that true strength was not about forcing others to acknowledge you. It was about helping others become strong themselves, about lifting up rather than pushing down, about teaching rather than ruling. And so they traveled, dozens of ships like the Quiet Thunder, maybe hundreds, moving through the galaxy in their disguises, watching, learning, helping when they could, asking nothing in return. They were the shepherds of the galaxy, the secret guardians, the quiet teachers, and they were content with that role because they understood something that few others did. The greatest power was not the power to destroy. It was the power to create, to nurture, to help others grow. And the greatest wisdom was knowing that sometimes the best way to lead was to walk beside others while letting them think they were walking alone. The Quiet Thunder disappeared into the vast darkness of space. Just another ship, just another group of travelers, nothing special, nothing remarkable, nothing that anyone needed to fear. And that was exactly how humanity liked it.